The invitation, the stars outside the ship were quiet, cold, and endless. Captain Roy Keller sat alone in a smooth silver seat, staring out through the transparent wall of the alien transport. His reflection looked back at him. Tired, uncertain, but curious. He had been to many planets. He had spoken to many species. But this invitation was different. It came from the Veyari, a peaceful alien race that almost never communicated directly, and now, for the first time in human history, they had invited a human to one of their ancient ceremonies. Roy didn't know why they chose him. Maybe because he was a good speaker. Maybe because he had kept peace in some difficult places. Or maybe it was something else. A soft, musical voice filled the ship, breaking the silence. "You have been chosen," it said gently. "Not just to witness, but to unite." Roy frowned. Unite? What does that mean? The voice didn't answer. The ship moved smoothly through space. Glowing stars passed by. Then suddenly, the ship entered orbit around a strange planet. Veyar Prime. It looked like a pearl floating in the dark. White clouds, silver oceans, and forests that shimmered with light. As the ship landed, Roy saw the Veyari waiting for him. They stood tall and graceful, their bodies thin like light beams, and their skins softly glowing in shades of blue and green. They wore long, flowing robes, and their eyes sparkled like small galaxies. One of them stepped forward and bowed. "Welcome, Ambassador Keller," she said. "We are honored by your presence at the ceremony of unity." Roy nodded, trying to smile. "Thank you. It's an honor to be here." They walked together through the alien city. It was unlike anything Roy had ever seen. Buildings floated in the air, connected by light bridges. Flowers grew upside down, and birds with glass wings flew in slow, elegant circles. Veyari children watched him with wide eyes, some of them giggling behind their glowing hands. As they reached the center of the city, Roy saw a great hall made of crystal and air. It stood tall like a mountain, its walls shifting color with the wind. Inside, hundreds of Veyari stood silently, waiting. At the front of the hall stood a figure in silver robes. She was taller than the others, her face half covered by a glowing veil. Her hands were joined in front of her, calm and still. "This is the bride designate," one of the Veyari whispered. Roy turned sharply. "The what?" Before he could ask more, music began. It wasn't like any music he had heard before. It was soft and deep, like the sound of stars breathing. The Veyari began to hum along, their voices forming a strange, beautiful harmony. The bride designate walked forward. As she moved, her face changed, like waves shifting on a lake. She was not just one face, she was many. Her form shimmered between human and alien shapes. It was confusing and hypnotizing. She stopped in front of Roy and looked up at him. Her eyes were completely black, but they didn't feel cold. They felt old, wise. Then she reached out and gently touched his hand. A bright light burst between them, wrapping around their fingers. Symbols glowing in white and gold began to appear on Roy's skin. They looked like writing, but he couldn't understand them. His heart pounded. "What is this?" he asked, pulling his hand back. The Veyari priest spoke in a loud voice. "The ceremony has begun. The bond is forming." Roy stepped back, confused. "Bond? Wait, I thought this was a political event, a celebration." The bride spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft, but it echoed inside Roy's mind. "You were chosen by the stars. Your name was written long before your birth. This is not a celebration. This is a union." Roy looked around. His human team was watching from the side, just as confused as he was. "Union? As in marriage?" The bride tilted her head, almost smiling. "Our kind does not marry like yours. This is older, deeper. It is the joining of two worlds, and it begins with you." Before Roy could speak again, the light around him grew brighter. The symbols on his arm moved like they were alive. He felt a strange warmth in his chest, like something ancient had just woken up inside him. And then, silence. The music stopped. The Vayari bowed their heads. The bride stepped back, her eyes still locked on Roy's. He stood frozen, breathing hard. Somewhere behind him, his translator device beeped. It showed a message written in both alien and English. Bride designate matched. Human. Unity accepted. Phase 1 complete. Roy stared at the message. His hand still tingled where she had touched him. This wasn't just diplomacy. This was something else. Something he was not ready for. The ceremony begins. The sky above Vayer Prime had no sun, yet the air glowed with a soft silver light. Captain Roy Keller stood in the middle of a grand circular chamber. The floor beneath him was not solid. It shimmered like liquid glass, yet held his weight. Thousands of glowing eyes watched him from above. They floated in the dark like stars. Vayari elders, silent and still. Roy's hand still burned where the bride had touched him. Alien symbols now moved slowly across his skin, fading in and out like light breathing. He was surrounded, but not in danger. At least, not yet. A low hum began to rise around him. Not from machines, from the Vayari themselves. Their bodies vibrated softly, singing a note that made the very air tremble. Roy felt it in his bones. It was not music. It was something older. A calling. He turned slowly and saw the bride again. She walked toward him with bare feet, her body made of shifting patterns. She was not wearing a dress. She wore light. Strands of energy flowed from her shoulders like a veil, touching the ground and leaving no shadow. Her face still changed with every step, becoming someone new every time she blinked. One moment she looked like a young woman from Earth. The next, like a being made of mist and stars. She raised her hand, and the music stopped. Then, the high priest stepped forward. His voice rang out across the chamber. Let the union of spirit and code begin. Roy frowned. Spirit and what? The priest turned to him, eyes glowing white. You are the first human to be chosen, not for war, not for trade, but for something greater. Something long awaited. Look, I was told this was a peace ceremony, Roy said, keeping his voice calm. What exactly are you trying to join me to? Not what, the bride whispered. Who? Roy looked at her. You? She nodded once. But why? We've never met. We're not even the same species. The bride stepped closer. Your DNA carries echoes. Memories locked in blood. Your world once knew ours long ago. Before your time. Before your sun had planets. The symbols on Roy's arm began to glow brighter. Suddenly the chamber's walls changed. They melted away like smoke, revealing a dark void filled with stars. Roy gasped. It was like standing at the edge of space itself. But he wasn't falling. He was floating in the middle of a memory. A holographic scene formed around him. Two beings stood side by side, one human, one Vayari, facing a massive machine, larger than a planet. It was old, cracked but still alive, pulsing, the Unity core. The bride's voice echoed across the chamber. 10,000 years ago, our ancestors built the core to protect the galaxies. It could not be controlled by one species alone. It required two, one of mind and one of heart. The vision zoomed in. Roy saw the two ancient beings touch hands. Light exploded from the machine, stars formed, worlds healed. But then, the bride continued, the bond was broken. Your kind forgot. Ours waited. Roy looked at the vision in silence. And now, she said softly, the stars have spoken again. The match has returned. You are the second human, and I am the last Vayari core keeper. The chamber returned to normal, but the silence was louder now. Roy took a deep breath. This is insane. No, the bride said. This is destiny. The high priest raised a crystal staff. Prepare the bond. Vayari floated down from the shadows above. They carried golden rings, not jewelry, but floating circles of energy. They spun them around Roy and the bride, forming a cage of light. Suddenly, Roy felt something pull at his thoughts. A soft, invisible thread entered his mind. Voices whispered memories that weren't his. A boy on a ship, staring at dying stars. A girl made of code, crying in a forest of metal trees. A war that burned 10 million planets. A promise made between galaxies. Roy fell to one knee, clutching his head. What is this? The bride knelt beside him, placing her hand gently on his temple. Your mind is waking. The connection is deepening. Roy looked into her eyes, and for a moment, he saw her memories, not just images, feelings. She was alone, for centuries, waiting for him. But how could that be? I'm just a man, he whispered. I didn't ask for this. Neither did I, she replied. But now we must choose, complete the bond, or let the old machine sleep forever. And, if it sleep, the enemy will rise. Roy looked up. Enemy? A rumble shook the chamber. Dark smoke poured from the corners of the room, forming a shape. Tall, twisted, sharp. A figure appeared, made of shadows and broken stars. The high priest's voice trembled. They have arrived early, the Nullborn. The shadow creature spoke in a voice that cracked the air. Do not complete the bond, or you both will burn. The bride stood tall. We are not afraid. The Nullborn raised a black hand. Then you will be the first to fall. The energy rings around Roy and the bride sparked, then faded. The bond was broken. Roy gasped for breath. The vision ended. The chamber was quiet again. But something had changed. The danger was now real. The bride turned to Roy. We don't have much time. The machine is waking. The enemy knows. If we don't finish what was started, everything will end. Roy stood up slowly. He was still scared, still unsure, but deep in his chest, something had shifted. A spark. Maybe fate wasn't real, but this moment was, and it demanded a choice. Bound by code. The ship was silent. Not the quiet kind, but the heavy silence that feels like something watching you from the dark. Captain Roy Keller stood by the viewing glass of the guest chamber inside the Veyri temple. His hand touched the spot on his arm where the alien symbols had appeared during the ceremony. They were gone now, or hidden, but he could still feel them, like something inside him had changed, and was waiting. Behind him, the alien bride sat cross-legged on a glowing platform. Her body no longer shimmered with light. Instead, she looked tired, almost human, her eyes half closed as if listening to a distant voice. Roy hadn't spoken in hours, not because he had nothing to say, but because he didn't know how to say it anymore. What do you say when you realize you might not be fully human anymore? What do you say to someone who might already be part of your mind? Finally, the silence broke. You're dreaming while awake, she said without opening her eyes. Roy turned to her. What does that mean? Your brain is rewiring. The code has entered your thoughts. It's trying to merge with your past, your identity. Code? He stepped forward. You keep saying that. What code? She opened her eyes slowly. The core code. The language of creation. The bond we started, it didn't just join us physically. It opened a link between our minds, our histories, and something older. Roy frowned. Older than you? She nodded. Older than both our species. He sat down slowly, facing her. Then tell me what's really going on. She studied him for a moment. Then she spoke, not with words, but with memory. His eyes widened. A sudden vision slammed into his mind. He saw a ship, his ship, but older, rusted, floating in space. His own face looked back at him from inside it, but it wasn't him. Not now. It was someone else. Someone who had lived long before, yet had his eyes. Next to the other, him sat a woman, part human, part machine. They were both dying, holding hands, whispering something, promising to try again if time allowed. The vision ended. Roy staggered back, sweat on his forehead. What the hell was that? The bride looked at him with something like sadness. A memory, from your genetic echo, passed down across bloodlines. You've done this before, Roy. In another form. He shook his head. I don't believe in reincarnation. This isn't belief, she whispered. This is math. Memory stored in cells. Emotion buried in DNA. The bond reawakens what you forgot. His breath caught in his throat. He wasn't just some soldier or diplomat pulled into an alien ceremony. He was chosen. But for what? Before he could speak again, a low pulse vibrated through the walls of the chamber. The bride stood up fast. They're near. Who? Roy asked. She pointed to the sky. The Nullborn. A hologram formed in the air above them, a massive fleet, dark and sharp, like daggers flying through space. Their ships didn't glide. They stabbed through the void. They followed. The signal, she said. Our partial bond activated the old machine. They know we're trying to finish what was started long ago. Roy stared at the fleet. Why do they care? Why stop us? The bride walked to the window and touched it. Because the machine holds the balance. If it awakens, the Nullborn can't spread. The core emits harmony. They feed on chaos. He swallowed hard. So we're lighting a beacon. And they're coming to kill the light. Exactly. A voice came through the room's speakers. It was the High Priest. Ambassador Keller, you must come to the sanctum. The bond is unstable. And the code is mutating. Mutating? Roy asked. What does that mean? You'll see, the bride said quietly. They walked together through a glowing corridor toward the sanctum. Roy's heart pounded louder with every step. Lights flickered as they passed, reacting to his presence. Bayari scientists stared at him, not with respect, with fear. Inside the sanctum, a floating screen showed his brain scans. Alien energy patterns had begun forming in his neural pathways. Something not human was growing in his mind. The High Priest approached. If the bond is not completed soon, the code will consume his identity. Consume? Roy asked. You will become something else. Not fully you. Not fully Bayari. A third thing. Ancient. Unknown. The bride turned to Roy. You always had a choice. Now is the time to decide. He looked at the images. They didn't lie. His brain was changing. And fast. If I finish the bond, he asked. What happens to me? The priest answered. You unlock the Guardian Protocol. You become the key to waking the Unity Core. But in doing so, your old self may not survive. Roy looked at the bride. And you? I've been waiting my whole life for this. If you walk away, I fade. If you join me, we change everything. He turned back to the screen, his hand trembling. Memories were already blurring. His mother's face, his first spaceship, his own name. He closed his eyes and then he made the choice. Finish it. The bride stepped forward. They placed their hands together again, but this time they didn't glow. They burned. Light poured from their bodies, symbols shooting through the air like fireflies. The entire sanctum shook. A beam of light shot into space, and in the distant stars, a signal awakened something enormous. It was sleeping no more. The machine's secret, the stars blinked, then went dark. In a distant part of the galaxy, a moon split in half. Not by war, not by impact, but by signal. An invisible pulse had spread across the universe, awakening machines buried under dead planets, calling out to something that had not moved in 10,000 years. And in the heart of Vayar Prime, Captain Roy Keller stood in silence, his body glowing faintly with the bond he had just completed. His eyes had changed, not in color, but in depth. They no longer saw just the room, they saw systems, connections, the living web that bound stars to stars. The bride, Sira, stood beside him. Her voice was soft, but filled with urgency. You've done it. The code is fully inside you now. Roy blinked slowly. I don't feel like myself. You're not, she replied. You're more. Across the temple, the high priest turned away from the glowing sanctum console. His face was pale. We tracked the signal, he said, and it's moving. What's moving? Roy asked. The priest stepped aside and revealed the screen. In the center of the map was the Heart Star, a once dead system filled with ruins. But now energy lines were forming around it, rotating in perfect patterns. Ancient orbit systems were powering up. At the core of it all was a structure the size of a small planet, a mechanical sphere, alive again. Is that it? Roy asked. The Unity core? Sierra nodded. Yes, the Guardian machine. Then we need to go there, Roy said quickly. Finish this. But the priest didn't move. It's not that simple. He pointed to another shape moving toward the Heart Star. Not a planet, not a fleet, but something worse. A void. Dark, hungry, and twisting space around it. Sierra's face went cold. The Nullborn have sent their prophet. Roy raised an eyebrow. Their what? The Void Speaker. A being made entirely of forgotten energy. It consumes code. It will do anything to keep the core from waking. The priest added, if it reaches the Heart Star before you do, the Guardian will fall into shadow. Roy looked from the screen to Sierra. Then we better leave now. She nodded, already walking toward the launch platform. Our ship is ready. A journey through memory space as they flew toward the Heart Star. Roy sat inside the ship's deep link chamber. It was designed for Vayari minds, but now it recognized his too. The chamber lit up, projecting memories. Not just his own, but ones buried inside the Guardian code. He saw glimpses of the past, a war among the stars. The first time the machine was activated, 2 lovers, 1 human, 1 Vayari, standing in front of a dead sun, choosing to merge their consciousness to stop. An invasion of silence, the same decision he had just made. I was one of them, wasn't I? Roy whispered. Sierra's voice replied through the link. You carry his echo, but you are still you. Will I stay that way? She paused. Depends how much of you survives the final bond. Arrival at the Heart Star, they entered orbit, above the Guardian core. It was beautiful, terrifying, miles wide, shaped like a sphere built from thousands of moving parts. It floated above the ruins of a dying sun, absorbing its energy. Alien lights danced across its surface, language, code, messages repeating in loops. A voice greeted them, not through speakers, not through minds, through instinct. You have come again, it said. Roy's heartbeat slowed. He felt the machine speaking inside him. What is this? He asked. The core recognizes your bond, Sierra said. It is opening to you. The ship descended into the Guardian. Metal petals opened like a flower. They entered the core's control chamber, a place untouched by time. Inside was a crystal bridge suspended in air, leading to a single, glowing platform. Roy stepped onto it. The platform scanned him. Lights wrapped around his body. Images flickered. Maps, languages, species, conflicts, futures. He was seeing everything. And then, the voice returned. You are incomplete. Roy flinched. What do you mean? You carry the code, but not the will. Sierra looked alarmed. It needs emotional truth. The core responds only to real unity. We bonded, Roy said. I completed the ceremony. Physically, she replied, but not from the heart. The machine pulsed. Only shared. Sacrifice completes the Guardian. A panel opened. Inside it was a glowing sphere, the core's key. One of them had to give up something, permanently. Sierra stepped forward. I'll do it. Roy grabbed her arm. No. You've waited centuries. You're the last of your kind. And you, she said, are still learning what you are. I've always known. He turned to the machine. What if we both give? Silence. Then the voice returned, quieter. Then you both must remember what it means to love across difference. The platform glowed brighter. They reached out and placed their hands on the core key together. A jolt surged through them. Their memories collided. Roy saw Sierra's pain, her loneliness, the centuries of watching humans evolve, waiting for the one who matched the old prophecy. Sierra saw Roy's fear, his doubt, his need to belong, not just to Earth, but to something bigger. And in that moment, they understood each other, not just with words, but with truth. A god awakens, the core exploded. With light, the heart star itself shifted orbit. Machines reactivated across galaxies. Ships hidden under dead moons rose into the stars. A new signal spread. One of harmony. The null-born prophet screamed in the void as its shadow began to crack. "You did it," Sierra whispered. "You completed the will." Roy fell to one knee. "I saw everything." "What did you see?" He looked up at her. The truth. The galaxy wasn't meant to be ruled. It was meant to be held together. And the Guardian, it's not a weapon. It's a promise. The machine's voice whispered one final message. You are now more than human, more than Vayari. You are the bond itself. The null-born attack space shook, not from sound, but from the deep invisible force of something ancient waking up, and something darker approaching. Captain Roy Keller stood on the control platform inside the Heart Star's core. Below him, the Guardian machine pulsed with golden light, newly awakened. The air around him buzzed with alien energy, humming softly like the galaxy was breathing again. Behind him, Sierra watched the holographic map expand. The signal is spreading, she said. Planets are responding. Old systems long silent are alive again. Roy looked down at his hands. Light flowed just beneath his skin like liquid circuits. He was changing, but it wasn't painful. It was terrifyingly natural. He turned to Sierra. How much time do we have? She didn't answer. The machine did. 11 minutes until impact. A hologram flared to life above them, showing a black storm moving fast through space. Not a ship. Not a fleet. Something else. Something alive. The null-born prophet, Sierra said quietly. We don't fight it. We survive it. Roy stared at the shadow. It was larger than any ship he'd ever seen, shaped like a burning spiral of ash and lightning. Its center was empty, a hole in reality swallowing light. As it came closer, nearby stars began to flicker and die. They've never come this far before, Sierra whispered. They fear what we've done. Good, Roy said. Then let's show them why. The call of war across the Heart Star. Thousands of Vayari defense constructs activated. Floating machines of silver and blue, shaped like wings and blades. Long dormant cannons lifted from the surface of the machine, charging with glowing energy. But this wasn't a battle of weapons. Not yet. The Nullborn weren't attacking with missiles. They were attacking reality itself. Inside the control core, screens flickered. Language broke down. Parts of the Guardian system started showing errors like pieces of logic were being eaten away. They're corrupting the code, Sierra said. This is how they fight. Not with metal, with unmaking. Can we stop it? Roy asked. Only if the Guardian fully awakens, she replied. And for that, we need to fuse. He turned slowly. You mean complete the merge? She nodded. You're still separate, still human, but the Guardian only listens to something that is both. Roy stepped back. If I merge with you, will I still be me? You'll be more, but you'll never be the same. A deep boom echoed through the chamber. The Heart Star tilted, hit by a wave of dark force. Roy closed his eyes. Flashes of memory hit him. His parents on Earth, his first spacewalk, the ceremony, the choice. Everything normal, everything small. He opened his eyes. Do it. The fusion Sierra reached out her hand. Roy took it. Light exploded between them. Not golden, not blue, something new. A third color, unknown, undefined. The machine wrapped them in rings of code, symbols spinning faster than light. Their bodies lifted from the floor. They didn't disappear. They became one. The Guardian responded. Its surface lit up with massive runes across continents of metal. Beams of energy surged into space. The pulse of a new language spread through the stars. And the Nullborn screamed. The storm had reached the outer defense ring. It collided with the Guardian's shield and broke straight through it like glass. Dozens of Vayari defense units vanished in a blink. Not destroyed, erased. Inside the core, a new figure stood on the platform. Not Roy, not Sierra, something else. Hybrid. Tall, radiant, calm, but burning with power. Eyes glowing white with galaxy light. Voice echoing with two souls. "We are the bond," it said. The confrontation a hole opened in the sky above the Heart Star. Black tendrils poured out like smoke. The center twisted, and from it stepped the Prophet. Its form was massive, shifting like liquid darkness. Its face was a mask of shattered mirrors, each reflecting a different ruined world. Its voice made the walls crack. "You should not exist." Dichu, Hybrid stepped forward. "And yet we do. You are born of light and order. We are the end of both. We are the silence between stars." The Hybrid floated upward, facing the storm alone. "You fear balance, because balance does not feed you. Balance is weakness." "Balance," said the Hybrid, "is truth." The Prophet raised a black hand. Space cracked open. Anti-code began to rain down like a virus trying to rewrite the machine. Symbols twisted into madness. Colors bled. But the Hybrid raised its hand too, and from it, harmony flowed. Two forces collided, light and void, code and chaos, truth and hunger. The turning point, the battle was not with ships, it was with meaning. The Prophet tried to break the bond, to separate the human from the Vayari inside the Hybrid, but the core held strong. Memories anchored them, a smile on Earth, a lonely voice in a crystal temple, a promise made beneath collapsing stars. The Hybrid's voice thundered across the system. "You came to end us, but it is you who ends today." They pointed toward the core of the Guardian. "Awaken full potential." The Heart Star blazed. Beams of white energy launched into the void, striking the Nullborn's Prophet in its center. It screamed as its form cracked, fell, and faded into static. Space healed behind it. The stars lit up again. Aftermath, silence returned. Real silence. Not the kind that hides fear, but the kind that follows peace. The Hybrid floated back to the platform. The glow around them dimmed. Slowly, Roy's form returned. He fell to his knees, gasping, holding his head. Sierra appeared beside him, also weak. They looked at each other and smiled. For the first time. Not because they had to, but because they wanted to. The priest's voice echoed through the chamber. "The bond has become legend, the Guardian has chosen, and the darkness has learned that even the smallest connection can defeat the deepest void." Roy looked out at the stars. He had come here as a man, just doing his job. Now he was something more. Not a god, not a soldier, a bridge. The Heart Star space was calm again. Too calm. The stars hung in stillness around the Heart Star, glowing softly as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath. Deep inside the Guardian machine, Captain Roy Keller stood in silence. He stared at a door made of solid light, a door that had not opened for 10,000 years. Behind it was the true core of the Guardian, and it had just spoken his name. Roy Keller, human of blood and bond. Step forward. Your final trial begins now. The voice didn't sound alien. It sounded familiar, like someone Roy once knew, or someone he might one day become. Sierra stood beside him, her hand trembling slightly. The merge had drained her. Her glow was fading. "You don't have to go alone," she said. Roy shook his head. "This part is meant for me. I feel it." He stepped forward. The door opened, and behind it was nothing, not a room, not a chamber. Just a fall. Roy took a breath and stepped in. The fall, there was no up, no down, just falling. Light and shadow spun around him in strange shapes. Words from lost languages, faces from forgotten memories. He wasn't falling through space. He was falling through himself. The Guardian was testing him, not with questions, with truth. Visions slammed into his mind, his childhood on Earth, watching stars. From the rooftop, his fear of being ordinary, his dream of being remembered, his guilt over leaving behind the ones who loved him. And then, his connection to Sira, the bond, the merge. But something was wrong. A voice whispered, "Do you even know who you are anymore?" Roy saw two versions of himself, one fully human, one fully merged with the Guardian's code. Both were walking away from each other, and in the center, he stood, split. The whisper came again. Choose, or lose everything. The source of the machine. Suddenly, the fall ended. Roy found himself standing on a platform made of stardust. Above him floated a sphere, pure white, spinning slowly. It pulsed with each breath he took. This was the source code. The first thought of the Guardian. The intelligence that powered the whole machine. It spoke. "I was made not to protect life, but to understand it. And now you must help me choose its future." Roy frowned. Choose what? A second sphere appeared beside the first. Dark. Still. "You have awakened me," the machine continued. "But my full activation requires balance. For every light, a shadow. For every Guardian, a gatekeeper." Roy took a step back. "What's the gatekeeper?" "A mind to hold the cost of protection. Someone must stay here, inside the machine, forever, watching, controlling, remembering. You mean a prison, a purpose, one that must be chosen." The light sphere glowed. So did the dark one. One would remain here, the other would be set free. The impossible choice. Roy looked around. "So what? I choose who stays, me or Sira?" "No," the Guardian said. "You already chose, when you bonded. Now you both carry the code, but only one can stay within it." Roy's chest tightened. He realized what the machine meant. Only one of them could return to the stars. The other would become the heart star itself. Not die, not disappear, but lose everything personal. Emotion, identity, self, Roy whispered. "Does she know?" The machine was silent. He stepped back into the light chamber where Sira waited. She looked at him, eyes full of hope. "Is it done?" she asked. He didn't speak. She read his silence. And she knew. The goodbye that wasn't a goodbye. They sat together, at the edge of the platform, staring into the pulse of the core. It looked like a heartbeat. Sira placed her hand over his. "I was born to guard this place," she said softly. "But I never expected to feel love." Roy smiled sadly. "I didn't expect to find it here either. But one of us has to stay," she whispered. "Don't we?" He nodded. They didn't argue, didn't try to make speeches. They just sat quietly, holding hands, their fingers glowing with shared light. Finally she stood. "Let me do it," she said. "You still have a life out there, people, choices." Roy rose too. "But you deserve freedom." "I had it," she said. "When I met you." His eyes welled up. But before either could say another word, the machine spoke again. "Your love is strong, strong enough to rewrite the system." A third sphere appeared, smaller, brighter, a third path, untested. Roy and Sira turned to it. "You may both remain as a new form. The heart star will no longer be a prison, but a being, with a voice, with will." Roy whispered, "A soul." "Yes," the machine said, "becoming something new." They joined hands again, The machine wrapped them. In code this time, not to erase, but to rebirth. The core glowed like a newborn star. All around the galaxy, systems aligned. Peace signals were sent out. Dying planets began to heal. Forgotten species woke from stasis. A message went across every channel in the known universe. The Heart Star lives. The bond speaks. The galaxy is not alone. Elsewhere, on Earth, a boy watched the night sky and saw a new star blinking near Jupiter. He didn't know its name, but he felt its warmth. On a distant mining ship, a crew heard music play from their radio, music no one had sent. In a war-torn sector, two enemy fleets suddenly stopped fighting. The commanders on both sides felt the same thought, hope, and deep within the Heart Star, a new being opened its eyes, part human, part Vayari, part machine, part memory, all soul. It smiled and whispered to the stars, "We are the bond. We are the voice of balance. And we will never forget what love can build." The final bond. The galaxy had changed, but not everyone knew it yet. Far across the stars, worlds continued to spin. Civilizations moved through their days, and warships still, prepared for battles they believed were necessary, yet something had shifted. In the core of the galaxy, beyond mapped systems and old frontiers, the Heart Star pulsed softly. No longer a machine, no longer a prison. It had become something new. It had become someone. And now, it was calling again. Flicker in deep space. On a silent space station near the edges of charted space, a scientist stared at a hologram, watching something impossible. "That can't be right," she whispered. A single star had blinked. Not a nova, not a death, a heartbeat. She turned to her team. "It's broadcasting, but not in any known language." "Translate it," her captain ordered. The message slowly appeared. "Echo bond active. Final phase initiating. Stand by." No one understood it, but they all felt the same thing. This was not a message, it was a return. Inside the Heart Star, deep in the living structure, Roy Keller floated through a dream of stars. He was no longer just human, no longer only a man. He was thought and purpose, connected to everything the Guardian had stored for Hans world histories, ancient oaths, the blueprint of stars. And yet, his memories were still his own. His laugh, his mother's voice, Sierra's eyes, especially her eyes. She was here, everywhere. They didn't speak in words anymore. They felt through the bond. Sometimes when the machine rested, they returned to human shapes, like dreams given form. In those moments, they walked, hand in hand through memory forests made of light. But now, something was stirring in the outer systems. A pulse. A threat. The final test. The return of silence. From beyond the edge of reality, something had slipped through. Not the nullborn. Something worse, something older. Not chaos, not hunger, but emptiness. A race of beings who had once tried to turn the universe into silence. Before stars, before thought, they were called the pale kind. Roy saw them in visions. Shapes made of white noise, moving without sound, unmaking. Everything they touched. They had seen the Heart Star awaken, and now they were coming to end it. This was the Guardian's final purpose. Not to fight war, but to face nothingness itself. The awakening Sierra appeared beside Roy. Her form shimmered between energy and memory. "They're approaching the veil," she said. "We can't face them as we are." "What do we do?" Roy asked. "Become what they can't understand." He closed his eyes. The bond inside them pulsed. They had merged before. Become something new. But this would be the final bond. They would no longer be two minds sharing one purpose. They would become one being, one will, one memory, one love, and they would face the end together. The final bond, deep in the core of the Heart Star, a crystal chamber opened. Inside was the origin circuit, a machine older than galaxies, designed to only activate once. No one had ever used it. No one had ever survived it. Until now. Roy and Syra stood before it, their hands touching. His voice, human again for a moment, said, "Are you ready?" Her voice soft and steady. "I've always been." They stepped into the light, their bodies disassembled, not destroyed but translated into pure bond code, and the heart star absorbed it all. The birth of the Sentinel. The machine cracked. New being stepped from the center. It was made of starlight and memory, of reason and hope, of promise and fire. Taller than human, but not alien. Eyes like twin galaxies. Hands made of shifting energy, a heart that beat across time. It was neither Roy nor Syra. It was the Sentinel, the first true guardian of the universe. Not a weapon, not a ruler, a guide. A soul made from balance. The final stand, the pale kind, arrived. They entered the galaxy like fog, cold, still, impossible to touch or define. Planets lost sound. Ships froze in space. People forgot their names. Light dimmed, but from the center of it all, a voice rose. The Sentinel stood above the heart star, arms wide, eyes glowing with the fire of two souls reborn. "You are not silence," it said. "You are the absence of meaning." The pale kind advanced, trying to erase it. But they could not touch the Sentinel, because the Sentinel was not made of code, not built from logic, not powered by science. It was born from love, and love, no matter how quiet, cannot be unmade. The Sentinel spoke once more. "We remember. We remain." And with that, light returned to the stars. The pale kind vanished. A new era begins. Years passed. Worlds rebuilt. Alliances formed. People began to whisper of a legend, a living star at the center of space, watching, guiding, protecting, not controlling, not interfering, just being. Sometimes explorers would get lost in deep space, and just before hope died, they would see a light, a soft glow leading them home. No one ever saw the Sentinel, but some claimed to hear a voice in their dreams. A man, a woman, both, neither, whispering, "We are the bond. We are the balance. You are not alone." Epilogue on Earth. A girl looked up at the stars and pointed to one that shimmered slightly brighter. "What's that one called?" she asked her. "Mother." The woman smiled. "I don't know its name, but I think it watches over us." The girl smiled back. "I think it's happy." Above them, light pulsed once, just once, enough to let the galaxy know the final bond was not the end. It was the beginning.